Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking some pretty dense banking mechanics and translating them into something we deal with every single day, the weather. Have you ever wondered how massive financial institutions prepare for sudden economic shifts without just, totally collapsing? Well, today we're unpacking the exact tools they use to forecast financial trouble and build strong capital shelters. We're going to completely step away from the dense financial jargon and look at this exactly like predicting the weather. So let's dive right into this. How exactly do massive banks survive an economic hurricane? Well, think about meteorologists. They don't just look out the window to guess if a Category 5 storm is rolling in, right? They use massive arrays of data to track pressure systems and predict huge storms long before the first drop of rain ever falls. And honestly, banks do the exact same thing. They use highly sophisticated models to forecast financial trouble so they can figure out exactly how thick the walls of their capital shelter need to be. All right, Section 1, Predicting Financial Weather. Let's look at the core tool banks use to forecast these storms, the Credit Portfolio View Model. Now, if you crack open a finance textbook to read about this model, you're going to see it described technically as a logit function with lagged independent variables. Yikes, right? But in practice, you can just think of this as a probability engine. This engine simply takes a hard look at past weather patterns, meaning historical data, and combines it with current conditions to predict tomorrow's financial storm. It calculates the exact likelihood that borrowers are going to default on their loans based entirely on the economic environment developing around them. Moving on to Section 2, the economic seasons. Because, as you might guess, this probability engine doesn't operate in a vacuum. It works by linking the chance of loan defaults directly to what we can easily understand as economic seasons. Just like the changing seasons, our economy moves in these massive, distinct waves. We shift from sunny, warm expansions at the peak of the business cycle, all the way down into the freezing, harsh depressions at the trough. Banks use their probability engine to link default risks to macroeconomic factors, like GDP growth rates and unemployment. They understand fundamentally that lending money during a sunny economic summer carries vastly different risks than lending during a harsh, freezing winter depression. Literally every fluctuation in the broader economy dictates how likely a company or an individual is to actually pay back their debt. But hey, the weather doesn't stay the same forever, right? And neither does this model. The Credit Portfolio View Model actually corrects itself for changing transition probabilities. What does that mean in plain English? It means the model effectively updates its forecast the absolute second the economic weather begins to shift. As the crisp air of autumn signals a coming winter, the model recalibrates the risk of defaults in real time. It is a highly dynamic tool, shifting its projections so the bank is never caught wearing a t-shirt in a blizzard. Which brings us to Section 3. How different industries react. This is such a fascinating layer of the model. Just like a solid concrete bunker handles high winds way better than a canvas tent, different industries react very differently to the exact same economic weather. Consider a rising interest rate environment. That's our economic storm. A software company might easily weather this hike because their overhead and borrowing needs are generally pretty low. They're the concrete bunker in this scenario. But a capital-heavy industry like construction, they rely constantly on taking out massive loans to buy expensive machinery and fund large-scale projects. So they feel a direct, immediate hit when the cost of borrowing goes up. They are much more exposed to the elements, and a sudden storm could easily halt their operations entirely. Because of this massive variance in vulnerability, the Credit Portfolio View Model lets banks differentiate this sector-specific sensitivity. It literally turns the dial up to high impact for vulnerable sectors. It pinpoints exactly which industries are going to face the absolute brunt of the storm during specific economic shifts. This allows the bank to proactively adjust its lending strategy, tighten credit lines, or demand more collateral long before the storm actually hits land. All right, Section 4, Expected versus Unexpected Storms. Once a bank has that macroeconomic forecast, and they know exactly how different industry sectors are going to hold up, they use the model to estimate their actual potential financial losses. So the crucial point here is understanding the difference between the two main types of losses this model calculates. First up, we have expected losses. These are just the average losses anticipated in normal everyday times. It's exactly like budgeting for routine house maintenance. You know you'll eventually need to clean the gutters or replace the water heater, right? It's a known cost of doing business. Banks handle expected losses simply by pricing them directly into the cost of their products. It's factored right into the interest rates they charge you. But then we have unexpected losses, which require a totally different playbook. Unexpected losses are the financial equivalent of a Category 5 hurricane suddenly tearing the roof completely off your house.
These happen in severe, adverse economic scenarios that go far beyond normal expectations. This isn't just wear and tear, this is catastrophic damage. You can't just price a hurricane into your daily budget. Preparing for unexpected losses requires a completely different, incredibly rigorous level of preparation to ensure the institution actually survives the shock.
Which leads us to Section 5, the ultimate safety net. So how exactly do banks build a shelter strong enough to withstand those catastrophic, roof-tearing hurricanes without just crumbling to the ground?
Well, to insulate their internal operations from the volatile macro environment outside, banks rely heavily on the credit portfolio view model for rigorous internal stress testing. They also use it to ensure strict regulatory compliance under global frameworks known as Basel II and Basel III. You can basically think of these frameworks as the global building codes for bank safety. They demand that financial institutions prove their internal environment is shielded from extreme shocks by maintaining robust safety buffers that go way beyond their daily operating needs. By running these complex weather simulations, banks determine exactly how much capital they must keep in reserve to build an impenetrable shelter. This stress testing acts as their ultimate safety net. It ensures they maintain total solvency, meaning they don't go bankrupt and trigger a wider financial panic, even when the absolute worst economic downturns hit. It allows them to confidently pass those strict regulatory stress tests, proving mathematically to regulators and the public that their capital shelter will hold firm when the heavy rains come. Which leaves us with a really critical takeaway to consider for ourselves. We've seen how major global banks use these incredibly sophisticated probability engines to constantly stress test their survival against the next big storm. They know the seasons change, and they never assume it's going to be sunny forever. So, I'll leave you with this. Knowing how quickly the economic seasons can shift, is your own financial portfolio ready for a sudden change in the weather?